All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 television program in the history of the entire universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown. All three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be reviewing End of Watch by Stephen King. This is book number 2 in his... No, I'm wrong. I've already screwed up the video. I'll edit that part out. This is book number 3 in Stephen King's Bill Hodges trilogy, or as some people like to refer to it as the Mr. Mercedes trilogy, which began with Mr. Mercedes here. Now, I did review Mr. Mercedes earlier, and I did review book number 2, Finders Keepers. In fact, I've been reading and reviewing every single Stephen King novel in order of publication for the last 3 years. And we are to End of Watch, which is pretty close to the end. I think we've only got maybe a half a dozen books left to go. And we will have reached I will have read and reviewed every single Stephen King story on the channel. End of Watch. Let's talk about the cover first, because you know I love graphic design and cover illustration. I've got the original hardcover here, first edition, and I've got the paperback version. You know, speaking of this book here, the first time I ever, I can't say that I met Stephen King, but I was in the room with Stephen King when this book came out, and he did a thing in Utah at the Juan Diego High School, and I went and saw that, and so I was within close proximity to Stephen King, and I do have a signed book of his, which is from a Buick 8 that I anyway. Where were we at? Oh, we were talking about the covers, paperback versus I like the hardcover better. I don't know why they changed it up for the paperback. This one's a little flashier. I like the fishies. I like the little blue fishies and the red water. But the thing is if you put all of the trilogy, you know, next to each other, they've all got a similar feel to them. They all kind of look like they match and go together. And then when you stick the spines like this, there's also a set of hardcovers of this trilogy that you can get that even has, when you put all the books together, it makes a smiley face. But I don't have that set. Anyway, we'll put those over here. And let us talk about this book. I listened to the audible.com version of this as I would walk around my neighborhood for a couple weeks. So I usually take an hour to an hour and a half long walk around my neighborhood here in Utah. And I listen to audiobooks as I do so, and I was listening to the Will Patton version of the audiobook. Will Patton did the audio versions of all 3 of these books, and he does a great job. So there's that review. Will Patton, round of a standing applause for that. Anyway, so this trilogy opens up as paramedics rush to a scene of horror where a Mercedes-Benz has driven over the top of a crowd full of people that were all waiting in line at the job fair or whatever it was, and killed a bunch of them. And that is how all 3 of these books start. All 3 of these books are tied to that horrific moment where Mr. Mercedes, as he is nicknamed, killed a bunch of people that were just standing there trying to get jobs, and waiting for the job fair to open, and killed them all. So, and all 3 of these books have sort of the same antagonist, who is Mr. Mercedes, and his real name is Bradley? Was it Bradley? No, I don't know. How can I forget? Bradley Hartsfield? Let me see. You know, I should write notes down. Bradley Hartsfield. I was right. I don't even need the notes. For some reason, I thought I would just, I was making that name. I was pulling that name out of my ass, but apparently it's the correct name. So anyway, the paramedics, they arrive at the scene. It's a horror. And then we jump in time to, well, first of all, I got to tell you, there is a line at the beginning of this book, and I think I memorized it. It was so great. And it's only a line Stephen King would write. And it's right in the first paragraph of the book. And it's, it was always darkest before dawn. Darker than a woodchuck's asshole. I mean, that's pretty dark, I would think. I mean, but only Stephen King would write that metaphor in one of his horror novels. Anyway, so Mr. Mercedes is this killer. And he killed a bunch of people, and he's just crazy. He's crazy and diabolical. However, in one of the previous books, and I won't mention one, a girl named Holly Gibney, who's an investigator, she had an altercation with Brady Hartsfield and clocked him over the head and made him and turned him into a vegetable state. And so now our serial killer Brady Hartsfield, who has been the antagonist in these books, he is in a place called the Traumatic Brain Injury Hospital, and he's been there for some time. And I'm assuming the cover of this book is a representation of that guy in the wheelchair in that brain hospital. But anyway, even though he's in a vegetable state and can't really speak or talk to anybody, he's still causing problems. He's got this telekinesis, kind of like the Stephen King's first book, Carrie, where the girl Carrie could move stuff around with her mind. Even though Brady Hartsfield's in a wheelchair, he can still freak people out by moving stuff around with his mind. And the orderlies and the nurses and the people that work at this hospital are freaked out by him. Now, Bill Hodges, our main character, and it's called the Bill Hodges trilogy because Bill Hodges is an ex-policeman. He's now an investigator. He's investigating a lot of different things that are going on around the town in these books here. And again, he's investigating some stuff, and but he's still obsessed with Bill Hodges. He's still obsessed with Brady Hartsfield, the Mr. Mercedes killer. And so once in a while, he goes to this brain injury hospital to talk with Bill Hodges. And the orderlies don't like that because it seems like every time Bill Hodges goes and talks to this guy, when he leaves, the Mr. Mercedes starts to make things fly around the room with his, Another 5 seconds wasted. We'll edit that out too. Anyway, the real magic of this book is, behind the drooling, cold killer, Mr. Mercedes, he's still wreaking havoc. He's still managing to wreak havoc throughout the town with his power of his brain. But the magic of this book isn't that. It isn't the horror story. It isn't the murder mysteries. It isn't this investigation. It's Holly Gibney herself, who's kind of this is really more of her book than Bill Hodges. And we get the interplay between Bill Hodges and his protege investigator, Holly Gibney. And that's where the real magic lies in this story. Now, book number 1 was about Brady Hartsfield, Mr. Mercedes, and Bill Hodges, the interplay between them. And I really liked it. Finders Keepers was a little bit of more of a story about some other characters, and I gave this one a little bit less of a enthusiastic review, although I still did like it. Now, this one ended the trilogy strong because we get back to Bill Hodges and Holly Gibney and their relationship, and it's mostly about them, which is why I liked this book. And I won't say any more than that, other than I really enjoyed their friendship, how they went about investigating the things that they needed to investigate in this, how both characters, Bill and Holly, had their issues, their struggles, their own suicidal tendencies, their own insecurities, their own depressions, and highs and lows and joys and sadnesses. And it was that was where this book really sort of elevated itself above the other two, I think. And so I will give End of Watch a solid, I'm going to give this a 9.5 out of 10. I think it's the best of the three.